That day was meant to be just a simple visit to the animal shelter, a young girl in a wheelchair hoping to meet some dogs. But no one could have anticipated the moment that was about to unfold. As she rolled closer to the kennels, most dogs wagged their tails eagerly, craving some affection. Then her gaze landed on a cage that everyone else carefully avoided. Inside was a retired police dog, so fierce and aggressive he was labeled too dangerous for adoption. He had attacked every person who tried to come near. Many believed he couldn't be trained. He lunged violently at the bars, barking uncontrollably. The staff warned the little girl to stay away from that cage. "He's dangerous," they cautioned. But she paid no mind. Instead of fear, the girl smiled gently. She rolled even closer, her heart beating fast, and whispered softly, "Hi, hero. It's okay. I'm here." Then something extraordinary happened. The fierce growling ceased. Everyone held their breath as the dog stepped forward slowly and did something nobody could have imagined. The dog lowered his head and broke down in tears. What came next stunned everyone present. Before we continue, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, I'm genuinely curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. Moments earlier, the rain had stopped, leaving a faint sparkle on the cracked pavement outside the aged brick shelter. The sign hanging above the gate was faded and peeling its letters hardly readable. Haven's Hope Shelter. Inside, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and damp hay. A few dogs barked nervously, their voices echoing down the narrow hallways lined with metal cages. For the volunteers here, this place was much more than a shelter. It was a battlefield waged between hope and heartbreak. Every day they battled to save abandoned dogs, injured strays, and forgotten souls left behind by a world that moved too fast. But lately the spark of hope was fading. Donations dwindled, the roof leaked during every rainstorm, and the staff struggled to care for the ever-increasing number of animals arriving at their doorstep. Among all the dogs, there was one cage everyone avoided, the very last one down at the far end of the hall. The nameplate read simply, Rex. He was a massive German shepherd with piercing eyes and a deep scar etched across his snout. His growls were low and constant, like a never-ending storm. The shelter workers whispered stories about him, once a police K-9 hero, now a threat. New volunteers were always warned, stay away from that cage. He's unpredictable. Even feeding him was done with extreme caution, sliding the food through a narrow gap in the bars. Nobody dared to put a hand inside. But behind that fierce exterior lingered something else, a haunting, deep sadness. Rex didn't always bark. Sometimes late at night when the shelter was quiet and the lights were out, he would sit silently in the corner of his cage, staring into nothingness, letting out a soft, mournful whimper. The shelter's director, a kind-hearted woman named Sarah, often paused by his cage and whispered, "You were a hero once. I wish someone would remind you of that." What nobody realized was that someone was on her way. And when she arrived, everything about that shelter and Rex's broken spirit would change forever. 7-year-old Lily Parker lived in a small house on the edge of town, surrounded by endless fields of tall grass that swayed gently in the breeze. From her bedroom window, surrounded by endless fields of tall grass swaying gently in the breeze. From her bedroom window, she could see the world unfolding outside, the kids pedaling their bikes, dogs darting after sticks, and sunlight sparkling on the nearby pond. Yet for Lily, that vibrant world seemed out of reach. 2 years earlier, a car crash had altered everything. She had been riding in the back seat, singing along to her favorite tune, when screeching tires sent the world spinning. The next thing she knew, she was waking up in a hospital bed, unable to move her legs. Doctors called her survival a miracle. But Lily didn't feel miraculous. She felt imprisoned within a body that wouldn't let her run free again. Her wheelchair became her constant shadow, always present, quietly still. Yet, despite the hardships, Lily carried a rare kind of spirit, a heart that still believed in kindness. She filled her days with painting, reading, and above all, watching videos of dogs on her tablet. She adored them, the loyal eyes, the wagging tails, how they could mend even the most broken hearts. Her mother, Emma, noticed how her daughter's face brightened whenever a dog appeared on screen. "Maybe one day," Emma whispered gently, "we'll find a friend just like that for you." Lily's smile grew wider. "A dog doesn't care if I can walk right, Mom. They only care if you love them." That sentence echoed deep within Emma's heart. So one weekend, after months of therapy and sleepless nights, Emma made a decision to take Lily somewhere special, the local animal shelter. Maybe, just maybe, meeting a real dog would bring back the joy her daughter had lost. On the morning of their visit, Lily woke early, her excitement bubbling like warm sunshine. She wore her favorite pink shirt and denim overalls, her blonde hair neatly tied in a ponytail. In her lap, she clutched a small, plush dog, her talisman of hope. As Emma gently wheeled her toward the car, Lily's voice was soft but hopeful. "Do you think they'll like me, Mom?" Emma smiled gently, sweeping a strand of hair from Lily's forehead. "Sweetheart," she said with tenderness, "I think they're going to love you." Neither could have guessed the dog waiting at that shelter wasn't just any dog. He was a battered warrior, his past etched with scars, his heart long forgotten how to trust or love until now. The bell above the shelter door chimed softly as Emma pushed Lily inside on her wheelchair. They were met with a cascade of sounds, barking, panting, the shuffle of paws against metal cages. The air held a faint mix of sawdust and soap. Lily's eyes grew wide as she took in the scene, her tiny hands gripping the sides of her chair. "There are so many," she whispered, filled with awe. A young volunteer named Mia stepped forward with a warm smile. "Welcome to Haven's Hope," she said softly. "You must be Lily." Lily nodded quietly, her blue eyes skimming the rows of kennels. "I've never been anywhere like this before," she admitted. Mia knelt down to meet her gaze. "Every dog here has a story," she said gently. "Some joyful, some heartbreaking, but all of them are waiting for someone to call their own." Emma smiled with gratitude as the two women began walking down the hallway. Lily rolled beside them, her eyes flickering from cage to cage. Some dogs barked playfully, while others wagged their tails at the sight of her. She giggled as a tiny puppy licked her fingers through the bars. For the first time in a long time, Lily's laughter filled the room like a burst of sunlight. But then the mood shifted. At the far end of the hallway, the barking deepened, turning harsher. A low growl rumbled through the shelter, sending a chill down Lily's spine. The volunteers exchanged tense glances. Mia halted. "That's Rex," she whispered. Lily angled her wheelchair slightly, peering into the shadowy passage. "What's wrong with him?" she asked. "He's different," Mia answered carefully. "He used to be a police dog, very courageous, but after what happened, he became unpredictable. We keep him separated so nobody gets hurt." Emma's brow furrowed. "Unpredictable," though Mia nodded. "He's bitten a few handlers. Now we feed him through the gate. The poor guy doesn't trust anyone anymore." But rather than fear, a softness came over Lily's expression. "Maybe he's just scared," she said softly. "Sometimes when people get hurt, they get angry too." Mia hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Sounds like you really understand him." Lily glanced toward Rex's dim kennel. The growling had faded. For a heartbeat, it felt like the dog inside was listening to her. "Maybe I do," Lily whispered. That was the moment everything shifted. The moment one broken spirit found another, and a silent spark ignited between them. Something no one in the shelter could have ever expected. In the farthest corner of Haven's Hope shelter stood a cage that felt like it belonged to another world. Unlike the others, it was wrapped in heavy-duty wire and secured with double locks. A small red tag on the latch boldly warned, "Caution, do not approach." Inside, the once proud police canine named Rex lay curled in the shadows, his breathing steady but wary. His fur, still thick and golden black, had lost its luster. His eyes, once sharp and alert, now held a blend of suspicion and sorrow. Every noise made him tense. Every movement drew a low growl from deep in his throat. Rex hadn't always been this way. Just a year before, he'd been part of an elite K-9 unit trained to track, protect, and serve. His handler, Officer Mark Jensen, called him the bravest partner he ever had. Together, they rescued lost children, caught criminals, and saved countless lives. Rex was a hero, the kind kids dream about. But one night changed everything. During a hostage rescue mission, Rex was sent into a pitch-dark warehouse where a terrified little girl was trapped. Gunfire erupted. Amid the chaos, Rex was wounded and the little girl didn't make it. That night, Mark carried his partner out, both of them bleeding, both broken in ways no one could see. When Rex healed physically, the department tried to bring him back, but he wasn't the same. Loud noises made him flinch. He snapped at officers he once trusted and refused to obey commands. The light in his eyes had vanished. Finally, with deep sorrow, Mark signed the papers for Rex's retirement, whispering just one thing as he left. "I'm sorry, buddy." Since then, Rex lived behind those steel bars, growing quieter, more withdrawn with each day. Volunteers tried to reach him, hoping kindness could mend his broken spirit, but he lunged at anyone who got too close. His growls weren't anger, they were cries of pain, a kind of pain invisible to the world. The shelter staff held on to hope for a miracle, but deep inside, they feared none would come. Dogs like Rex, those who'd seen too much, rarely get a second chance. That morning, as Lily's gentle laughter echoed down the hall, Rex's ears twitched awake. He lifted his head just slightly, his eyes locking onto the sound. It wasn't the harsh bark of a command or the stern voice of an adult. It was something pure, something tender. For the first time in countless months, Rex rose to his feet, pressing his nose against the cold metal bars of his cage. The volunteers exchanged nervous, uncertain glances, yet no one realized this small flicker of movement was the very first spark of something extraordinary unfolding. Because in a heart once forged by battle, it took only one gentle voice to remember how to feel again. That morning, the air in the shelter's hallway shifted, thick with quiet anticipation. Lily wheeled herself slowly down the narrow path between the kennels, her tiny hands clutching the rims as her mother followed close behind. Around them, the barking softened, as if the other dogs sensed something different about her visit. At the end of the long corridor beyond the metal bars, Rex stood motionless. His deep golden brown eyes tracked every movement she made. The faint hum of fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead, but to Lily the world had hushed. It was just her and him, an unspoken bond between two souls. Mia hesitated by the doorway. "Lily, darling," she whispered gently. Maybe we should pause here." She threw a cautious glance at Rex, who remained still, but whose tail gave a slow, deliberate flick. "He's no ordinary dog. He's wary of strangers." Lily tilted her head slightly. "He's not angry," she whispered back. "He's just sad." Emma rested a tender hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Let's listen to the kind lady, honey. We don't want to frighten him." But Lily showed no fear. If anything, she seemed more peaceful than anyone in the room. Her gaze held Rex's through the bars, and for a fleeting moment something invisible passed between them, a shared pain neither could explain. Rex's ears twitched, yet he didn't bark or growl. He simply stood still, watching her with guarded curiosity. The volunteers froze, exchanging quiet looks. This was new. Usually, Rex would snap or snarl the moment anyone approached. Lily raised her small hand and gave a soft wave. "Hi there," she said gently. "You're really big." Her voice carried a lightness like sunshine dancing on water. Rex's tail flicked once, then again. His eyes, once cold and distant, softened just a fraction. Mia took a quiet step back, whispering, "I can't believe this." Lily smiled and edged her wheelchair forward just a bit more. "It's okay," she whispered. "I know you won't hurt me." Rex lowered his head, ears turned forward. A low sound rose from deep in his throat. Not a growl, but a soft, uncertain whimper. It drifted down the hallway like a memory stirring from a long, silent sleep. For the first time, the feared police dog didn't look threatening. He looked lost. And for the first time since her accident, Lily didn't feel fragile. She felt courageous. Because deep inside, she understood this dog wasn't here to scare her. He was here to find her, The volunteers held their breath as Lily's wheelchair creaked closer to Rex's cage. The tension thickened. Every sound, the flicker of the lights, the slow drip of a pipe somewhere in the building, seemed to fade beneath the steady rhythm of Rex's breathing. His body stayed still, but his eyes followed Lily's every move with the sharp focus of a soldier recalling long-buried instincts. "Lily, that's close enough," Emma said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "Sweetheart, please don't." But Lily didn't stop. She looked into Rex's eyes and smiled gently. Her voice barely above a whisper, she said, "Hey, boy." But Lily didn't hesitate. She glanced at Rex and gave a soft smile, her voice barely a whisper. "Hey, buddy," she said. "It's all right. I'm not here to hurt you." The dog cocked his head, his ears flickering, as if he sensed the gentle calm in her voice, a tone so distant from commands or scolding, filled with something he hadn't heard in a lifetime. "Trust." Rex cautiously stepped forward, one paw at a time, his claws softly tapping the floor. The volunteers tensed up, ready to pull Lily's chair back, but she raised her hand slightly, halting them. "Let him," she commanded. Her hand shook as she reached out toward the cold, unforgiving metal bars. Though the cage kept them apart, her bravery seemed to close the distance between them. Rex's breath quickened. He sniffed carefully, the scent of innocence drifting through the iron barrier, his muscles coiled, instinct flickering like an ember. Then his eyes locked with Lily's, those wide, tear-glimmering blue eyes, the same eyes he'd seen on that fateful night when everything shattered. Suddenly the tension shattered too. Rex released a low, aching whimper and pressed his forehead against the bars. A chorus of gasps swept through the room. Mia clutched her mouth, tears welling up. "He's never done that before," she murmured softly. "Never." Lily let out a delicate giggle, her voice trembling, flooded with joy. "See, Mom? He's not bad. He just needed someone to say hello." Emma stood frozen, disbelief washing over her. This was the very dog they'd been warned about, the one nobody dared approach. Yet here he was, calm, gentle, his tail wagging faintly. Lily pressed her palm to the icy steel. Rex nudged his nose closer until their skin met through the bars. For a fleeting moment it felt as though time itself had ground to a halt. The broken child and the wounded dog, discovering a kind of connection only they could understand. Sarah, the shelter director, whispered under her breath, "He's waking up to love." Rex lowered himself. Steady breath, soft gaze. Lily smiled through her tears. "I think we're going to be friends," she said quietly. And for the first time in years, Rex believed her. The shelter fell silent. Every volunteer, every bark, all hushed. It was as though the whole world paused to witness this bond unfolding. Lily sat perfectly still, her wheelchair mere inches from Rex's cage, her small hand resting on the chilly metal. On the other side, the once feared K9 bowed his head gently, pressing his muzzle against her palm. His eyes, once flickering with fear and fury, now shimmered with something forgotten long ago. Peace. Emma stood immobilized, not even realizing she was holding her breath. "Oh my God," she whispered. "He's letting her touch him." Mia's voice wavered. No one's ever been able to get that close before. Lily's lips twitched into a faint smile. "See, Mom?" she said softly. "He's a good boy." Her words floated through the hall like sunlight breaking through thick fog. Rex's ears flicked up at the sound, and his tail gave a slow, tentative wag, then another real and true. The volunteers exchanged glances, some wiping tears, others speechless. Then Lily did what no one expected. She unbuckled her seatbelt and leaned forward, her hand slipping gently through the narrow gap between the bars. "Hi, Rex," she breathed. "I'm Lily." Emma gasped, "Lily, no!" But before anyone could stop her, Rex shocked them all. He leaned in as well, slow and careful, until his nose brushed her fingertips. He sniffed once, then twice, and then softly licked her hand. The entire shelter burst into gasps. One volunteer covered her mouth, another whispered, and then gently licked her hand. The entire shelter gasped in surprise. One volunteer covered her mouth while another murmured, "He's finally letting her." Lily giggled, her laughter ringing out like chimes in the silent hallway. "It tickles," she whispered, awe filling her voice. Rex exhaled softly, almost like a relieved sigh, his body melting into a calm state. His eyes half closed, as if savoring a feeling he once thought lost forever. Tears traced down Emma's cheeks. "He trusts her," she breathed, hardly able to believe the moment unfolding. Sarah, the shelter director, stepped forward, slowly shaking her head in quiet amazement. "All this time, all he ever needed was kindness," she said gently. "And it came from a little girl who can't even walk." Lily looked up, her smile shining through tears. "Maybe he doesn't need fixing," she whispered. "Maybe all he needed was to feel loved once more." Rex let out a low, contented whine, and for the very first time since arriving at the shelter, he settled down completely, resting his head right by the bars where Lily's hand lay. It was the moment that held everyone still, the moment when a child who had lost her strength returned it to a dog who had lost his spirit. News spread fast throughout the shelter. By the afternoon, everyone knew about the little girl in the wheelchair who had touched the untouchable dog. Even Sarah, the shelter director, couldn't stop watching the security footage, Rex pressing his head gently against Lily's palm, eyes calm and trusting. It defied everything. For months, Rex had pushed every person away. But this time, he made a choice different from all before. The following morning, a sleek black SUV rolled up to the shelter. A man stepped out, tall and broad-shouldered, his eyes weary but steady, a police badge clipped to his belt. It was Mark Jensen, Rex's former handler. Sarah greeted him cautiously at the entrance. "Officer Jensen, thank you for coming." He gave a slight nod, unreadable. "You said Rex made a connection with someone." Sarah motioned for him to follow. As they walked down the hall, the barking dogs quieted, as if they too felt the weight of his return. Standing by Rex's cage, Mark paused. His eyes softened, his throat tight with emotion. Rex lifted his head, ears twitching. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then, voice low and wavering, Mark said, "Hey, partner." Rex rose slowly, tail lowered, uncertain. His gaze shifted between the man and the small figure seated in the wheelchair at his side. Lily smiled softly. "Hi," she said. "You're Rex's friend." Mark glanced at her, surprised. "You're the girl who reached him?" Lily nodded with pride. "He's not mean, he's just carrying sadness." Mark's heart broke at her words. "Yeah," he murmured, voice cracking. "He's been hurting for a long time." He crouched by Rex's cage, eyes far away. "Remember that last mission boy, the warehouse?" he whispered. "The little girl you tried to save?" His voice faltered. "She didn't make it. You blamed yourself. I don't think you ever forgave me for pulling you out." Lily's eyes grew wide. "He tried to save a girl." Mark nodded slowly. "She was about your age." For a long moment, silence filled the space. Then Rex stepped closer, his nose nudging gently against the bars near Mark's hand. The man's eyes shimmered with tears. "You still remember, don't you?" he whispered. Lily watched the two of them, wounded soldier and steadfast friend, and said softly, "Maybe he just needed another little girl to show him it's okay to open his heart and love again." Mark gave a faint smile, tears rolling down his cheeks. "Maybe you're right." Mark smiled faintly, tears slipping down his cheek. "Maybe you're right." As Mark watched Rex gently rest his head near Lily's chair once again, a quiet healing stirred within him too. For the very first time since that heartbreaking night, both the handler and his brave K9 found solace through the tender courage of a young girl who refused to see a monster where only pain had once lingered. From that moment on, Lily and her mother began visiting the shelter every single afternoon. Their visits started small, just 15 minutes at first, but before long those fleeting moments grew into long hours. Each time Lily's wheelchair rolled through the entrance, Rex's ears would perk up. The growls that once warned all who approached had softened into quiet whines of recognition and trust. Sarah, the shelter director, watched from her office window, tears glistening in her eyes. "Look at him," she murmured softly to the staff. "He waits for her." The volunteers around noticed it too. Rex no longer barked at strangers, nor snapped during feeding times. He ate patiently and even wagged his tail whenever Lily's laughter carried down the hall. The change was subtle, steady, but undeniably real. Lily spoke to him like she would to a dear friend. She shared stories about her school days, her hopes for the future, and her favorite cartoons. Sometimes she sang softly while painting pictures of dogs with wings and glowing halos. Rex would sit near the bars, his head tilted, as if he understood every loving word. On a stormy afternoon, when thunder rumbled outside, Rex began pacing nervously inside his cage, shadows of memories flickering behind his dark eyes. But then Lily rolled closer, her voice calm and steady. "It's just the sky talking, boy," she said with a gentle smile. "You're safe here now." Her words washed over him like a soothing balm. He settled down, pressing his nose against the bars, as if to thank her. Emma wiped a tear from her cheek as she watched her daughter, who had feared her own fragility for so long, was now bravely comforting a dog once feared by everyone. Mark Jensen, Rex's former handler, came by often too. He'd bring Rex's old police tag and sometimes tossed a ball across the hallway, though Rex wouldn't chase it unless Lily giggled and encouraged "Go on, hero. You've got this." Only then would Rex nudge the ball back with his paw. Each visit peeled away the walls built by years of pain, both hers and his. Lily's smiles grew brighter, her laughter freer and fuller. She even started spending time outside with her mother in the garden again, always chatting about her special friend at the shelter. The day Rex finally rested his head in her lap just past the open gate, the entire shelter staff held their breath. There was no growl, no hesitation, only a quiet, sacred trust. Lily ran her small fingers through his fur, whispering softly, "You're not broken anymore, Rex." But what she didn't yet see was that he wasn't the only one healing, because in loving him, Lily had rediscovered her own strength. And through trusting her, Rex found a new reason to live. The bond between Lily and Rex grew with each visit, like two broken pieces of a puzzle, finally coming together in the perfect fit. But no bond, no matter how pure, stays unchallenged. It happened one storm-darkened afternoon. The sky was heavy, and fierce wind rattling the shelter's windows. Inside, most of the dogs were uneasy, their restless barks bouncing down the hallways. Lily had just arrived with her mother, wheeling softly down the corridor, humming a gentle tune. Rex's ears twitched at the familiar sound. That melody always soothed him. Sarah met them at their door. "He's been a bit restless today," she said quietly. "The thunder seems to stir up old memories." Lily nodded with quiet courage. "It's all right. I'll be there for him." As she edged closer to his kennel, a sudden thunderous crack shattered the silence outside. It startled everyone, reverberating like gunfire. Rex sprang upright, eyes wide with alarm, muscles tense. In an instant, haunting memories surged, yells, gunshots, sirens. He let out a sharp bark, teeth bared, pacing restlessly, claws scraping the floor in a frenzy. The room thickened with panic. "Get her back!" a volunteer shouted, reaching to pull Lily away. But before anyone could move, Lily raised her hand. Her voice shook, yet her gaze fixed on Rex unwaveringly. "No, he's not angry. He's afraid." Emma pleaded softly, "Lily, please." But Lily remained still. She took a deep, steadying breath and spoke calmly. "Rex, you're all right. You're safe with me." Rex hesitated. His breaths came heavy, tail curled tight, yet her words pierced through the storm raging in his mind like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. His eyes met hers, trembling, filled with uncertainty. Lily slowly rolled closer. "It's just thunder," she whispered gently. "It's loud, I know, but it can't hurt you anymore." She extended her fragile hand through the open gate. The staff exchanged gasps. This was the first time she'd reached him without a barrier. For a delicate, suspended moment, silence fell. Then Rex stepped forward slowly, lowering his heavy head until his muzzle pressed softly against her palm. The tension dissolved. He exhaled deeply, his whole body finally relaxing. Lily smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "Good boy, you're so brave, just like before." The volunteers watched in hushed awe, realizing they weren't witnessing a miracle. They were seeing a memory rewritten. Rex wasn't just trusting Lily, he was trusting the world again because of her. And that day, the shelter discovered something profound. Healing doesn't always come from meds or training. Sometimes it's born from love that refuses to surrender. A week after the storm, the shelter seemed brighter, not only from sunlight streaming through dusty windows, but from something deeper inside. Every morning when volunteers opened the door, Rex was already awake, sitting still, eyes fixed on the entrance as if waiting for someone. And every afternoon, when that little wheelchair rolled and his tail began wagging before a single word was spoken, Sarah often smiled at the sight. "I believe we found what truly heals him," she whispered to Emma one afternoon. "Your daughter did what no trainer ever could." Emma glanced at Lily quietly, painting on her lap beside Rex's open kennel, while the dog rested calmly at her side. "She's happier than I've seen her in years," Emma said softly. "He gives her something medicine never could." Mark Jensen had been visiting regularly too. Often he stood at the door, arms crossed, watching the tender girl and the wounded hero side by side. One afternoon, he turned to Emma, voice weighted with thought. "He's ready," he said. "He trusts again, he's whole." Emma met his gaze. "What happens now?" Mark paused briefly before answering. "He needs a home. Not just any home, your home." Emma froze. "You mean to say," he nodded solemnly, "Rex has already chosen, and I believe your daughter has too." Those words hung heavy in the air. Emma looked back at Lily, who was giggling as Rex nudged a small toy toward her nose. Her laughter was pure, joyful, free, the kind that reaches deep into the heart. That night, Emma couldn't fall asleep. She replayed every moment: the crash, the long hospital days, the loneliness that shadowed her little girl, and now the joy this dog had reignited in her life. By dawn, the choice was clear. She entered the shelter with Lily by her side and saw Sarah and Mark waiting. "I want to adopt him," Emma said quietly. "I think he's already a part of our family." Mark beamed, his eyes shining. "He's been waiting to hear that." When Rex walked out of that shelter beside Lily's wheelchair for the very first time, tails wagging and hearts soaring, everyone watching knew it wasn't just a dog being adopted that day. It was two souls finally finding their forever home. The day Rex left felt like the first breath of spring after a long, hard winter. Volunteers lined the door, smiling through tears as they watched him step out. Head held high, tail wagging, slowly staying close to Lily's wheelchair. The sunlight spilled over his fur, casting a golden glow. For the first time in years, Rex wasn't stepping into the unknown. He was walking home. Emma opened the gate to their cozy white house with trembling hands. "Welcome home, Rex," she whispered softly. Lily clapped her hands, her laughter bright in the air. "Come on, boy, I'll show you everything." The first thing Rex did was explore every nook and cranny, sniffing and circling, before finally curling up beside Lily's wheelchair, like a faithful guardian taking his post. When Emma brought out his new bed, he ignored it, and instead lay on the rug close to Lily's chair, refusing to leave her side. Days passed, and the rhythm of the house began to transform. Mornings were no longer silent. There was barking laughter and the soft padding of paws against the wood floor. Lily would roll into the kitchen and feed Rex his breakfast, always saying heroes eat first. Sometimes she'd drop bits of toast and he'd gently scoop them up, patiently waiting until she finished her meal too. Other times, when she tried reaching for a fallen item, Rex would nudge it closer with his nose, earning a proud giggle and a gentle pat on the head. He followed her everywhere, her therapy sessions, the garden, even when she painted. If she dropped a brush, he'd sit and stare at it until she noticed, like a silent helper who never needed thanks. One evening, Emma looked out the window and froze. There was Lily, outside her wheelchair beneath the soft glow of sunset, reading aloud from her storybook, her voice gentle and full of feeling. Rex rested his head on her lap, eyes half closed, utterly at peace. Tears brimmed in Emma's eyes. She whispered, "You gave her back her life, old boy." Inside the house, a framed photo of Rex in his police vest sat beside a new one, Lily and Rex together, smiling under the same golden sunlight. Two heroes from different worlds, both battered, both mending. That evening, as the household surrendered to sleep, Rex positioned himself faithfully at Lily's bedside, eyes wide, ears perked. When she murmured, "Good night, my fearless friend," his tail gently tapped the floor in reply. For the very first time in what felt like ages, they both rested easy, unburdened by dread. It was a serene Saturday morning, the kind of calm that almost seemed unreal. The sun had just crept over the rooftops, casting a warm, golden hue across the Parker residence. Lily sat quietly by the living room window in her wheelchair, gently brushing Rex's coat, while softly humming a tender melody. The German shepherd nestled close beside her, eyes gently closed, savoring every loving stroke. Meanwhile, Emma stood in the kitchen flipping pancakes, a smile spreading across her lips as the sound of her daughter's laughter floated through the room. For several months now, their home had been touched by a feeling it hadn't known in years, joy. Yet peace, as it often does, has a way of challenging those fortunate enough to find it. It all began with a faint scent of smoke. At first, Emma assumed it was the stove, but when she turned off the burner, the smoke only thickened. Then came the subtle crackling sound, followed by an ominous, whispering hiss. Her heart raced. She pivoted toward the hallway and froze in place. Smoke was curling from beneath the laundry room door. "Lily!" she shouted, rushing forward. "Stay put!" But before she could reach her daughter, flames suddenly erupted from an electrical outlet, filling the hallway with choking black smoke. The alarm screamed. The air grew scorching and suffocating. Emma coughed violently, tears stinging her eyes as she struggled through the haze. Lily's in the living room. Rex's ears perked sharply. He barked once, then twice, his gaze locking on the fire. Lily's face drained of color. "Mom," she whispered. She tried to wheel herself forward, but the chair snagged on the rug's edge. She pushed harder. No movement. The smoke thickened, swallowing the room. Rex growled low and paced anxiously. Then, with unwavering resolve, he charged into the burning hallway, barking fiercely. "Rex, stop." Lily sobbed, tears streaming down her cheeks, but he didn't hesitate. He surged into the smoke and vanished into the smoky abyss. Seconds stretched into eternity. Lily coughed and whimpered, "Please come back. Please." Then, through the swirling haze, a figure emerged. Rex fur, singed eyes blazing with fierce determination. He gripped the side of Lily's wheelchair with his strong jaws and pulled with every ounce of strength. Inch by inch, he dragged her closer to the front door. Emma burst from the smoke just behind them, collapsing to her knees. "Rex, Lily!" she cried out. Together, dog and mother pushed and pulled until they finally broke through the front door into the fresh air. The moment they hit the grass, Rex collapsed beside Lily, panting hard, his chest rising and falling in ragged gasps. Emma wrapped her trembling arms around them both, tears flowing freely as the house blazed behind them. But the family was safe, and the hero once overlooked and forgotten had saved his girl once more. Fire trucks arrived within what felt like moments, sirens cutting through the night as neighbors gathered in the street. Watching firefighters battle the devouring flames consuming the Parker home, Emma sat on the curb, clutching Lily close, tears streaking down her soot-stained face. Rex lay loyally by their side, his fur-charred chest rising and falling in heavy breaths, but his eyes never left the little girl he'd risked everything to save. "Stay with me, boy," Lily whispered, her trembling hand resting on his head. "You're my hero." Paramedics hurried over, checking them both. One firefighter knelt beside Rex, amazed. "Is this the dog who pulled her out?" Emma nodded weakly. He never left her side, not for a single second. The firefighter shook his head in awe. "He's nothing short of a miracle." A neighbor had captured the entire rescue on her phone. The moment Rex dragged Lily through the smoke flames roaring behind them, determination blazing in his eyes. By nightfall, the video went viral. Within mere hours, Nero Dog Rex was trending across the globe. News anchors replayed the footage, their voices quivering with emotion. A retired police K9-turned-family companion had risked everything to save a paralyzed little girl, a reporter declared. Viewers dubbed him the Angel K9. Messages poured in letters, donations, and gifts for Rex from every corner of the world. Kids sketched him wearing a superhero cape. Soldiers sent their badges in tribute. One message stood out among the rest from the local police chief. Once a hero, always a hero. Rex had rightfully earned his badge back. Days later, the shelter that once housed Rex saw a surge of visitors like never before. People lined up not to confront a once feared, aggressive dog, but to honor the living legend who showed that love can rewrite even the harshest chapters. As for Lily, her smile never faded. "He didn't just save me," she told the reporter softly. "He saved himself, too." When asked how she felt, Emma glanced fondly at her daughter and the scarred, faithful dog resting by her side, then said, "Rex didn't just pull my child from the flames, he brought light back into all our lives." From that day forward, the world no longer saw Rex as merely a retired canine. They saw him as a beacon of love's healing power. The following weeks felt like a fresh dawn for the Parker family, and for Rex. Though the fire had claimed their home, it never touched what truly mattered. The hospital staff hailed Rex as a miracle dog. The doctor remarked he should have succumbed to smoke inhalation, but somehow he stayed alert just long enough to save Lily. Pure instinct. One medic said, but those who truly understood called it something greater love. When Lily was discharged, the entire town gathered outside to welcome her and Rex back. Firefighters, police officers, and volunteers from Haven's Hope Shelter stood in applause, cheering as she rolled down the ramp with Rex trotting beside her, proudly paw wrapped in bandages. Mark Jensen, in his uniform, held a small item Rex's old police badge shining bright after being polished. He knelt down by the dog, tears shimmering in his eyes. "You've always been my hero," he whispered, fastening the badge onto Rex's new collar. "But today you're everyone's hero." Rex gently licked his hand, tail thumping softly against the pavement. The crowd erupted in applause, flashes from cameras illuminating the scene. But for Lily, everywhere else faded into silence, just the warm sun, the steady heartbeat of her dog close by, and the overwhelming feeling that her world was finally complete again. In the months that followed, another miracle began to unfold. Lily's doctors started noticing movement in her legs. "It's impossible," they said. But day by day, her strength grew. "She always said it was because of Rex," Lily would say with a bright smile. "He believes I can, so I have to try." And one golden afternoon, in front of her, therapist mother and Rex Lily took her very first step. The room fell into a hush, then overflowed with tears and laughter. Rex barked once, a sharp, proud cheer. Emma dropped to her knees, sobbing, "You did it, sweetheart. You really did it." Lily reached down to pet her steadfast friend. "No, Mom," she whispered, tears shining as she smiled. "We did it." That evening, as the sun dipped low and bathed the world in amber and gold, Rex lay peacefully at Lily's feet, eyes half closed, his badge glimmering softly on his collar. Mark Jensen stood silently at the doorway, watching with quiet pride. "You saved her life," he whispered gently. Emma smiled warmly in return. And just like that, she rescued him too. As the screen slowly darkens, Lily's voice lingers tenderly in the air. "Sometimes angels walk beside us without wings.